pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks for coming out on this afternoon that looks a lot more like an evening because the time change hasn't happened yet, and we live north. So I want to welcome Charlie Ware as our new student representative. If board members haven't had a chance to meet her, I hope you get to, right after this. But just a couple things. She's extremely involved, very well known around the school, very well liked, and is you're a member of SCLC. Interact Club, I think, is pretty important to you as well. And she's done two season sports, soccer, lacrosse, and one of the big things she's doing this year, it hasn't rolled out yet, has it? We Can?
No, it's starting this coming Friday and Monday. The first.
Okay, and do you mind just saying, give us a couple sentences what We Can is?
So basically, it's a program that was started at Waynfleet. We're bringing it to more. So there's a cohort of 40 students, and they meet a couple times throughout the year to discuss a variety of topics, group activities, all those kind of things, just to break the barriers of normal friend groups, normal political groups, everything like that seems to ooze down to high school levels, just to make sure there's interactions happening and we're learning things from people that we wouldn't normally.
That's great. And so that's starting up here. It's a big project. I know a lot of staff, a lot of students are involved, and we're excited. So hopefully you can keep us updated on how that's progressing at our meetings. But welcome. We're glad to have you. And it's really good to have you. And so we have Charlie and Charles. And so that's how we're naming it. Until you come up with some other names for Charles. Anyway, no, just kidding. So if we could have the minutes approved, or questions on the minutes from last meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, without further any discussion, all in favor? And that's approved. Adjustments to the agenda. I think we're just going to fit in after the student board report, comments, questions regarding the board reports, from the schools and the departments. Give a chance for anyone to comment on activities that were going on. Those are, really comprehensive reports, and so we'll just call that 8.5. And I don't think there's anything else for adjustments. And we go to the public session, and I don't see anyone from the public coming up. So we're going to move right on to our staff report, and I'm going to ask Patrick to introduce.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have Micah Depper here tonight to follow up on the conversation around sustainability. And as you remember, I sent it to you, but the resolution that the board passed and supported last year, and we said we would come back in 9 months and 18 months, correct? With a report and update. So tonight is really a progress report to tell you what we've done, who's on the committee, and really have done some really positive work. So Micah, thanks for being here, and come on up.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm going to invite Ren Coffinger and Charles Thalen to join as well. They're members of our committee. And Jenna, if you wouldn't mind getting that slideshow up, that would be awesome. Thank you. And that's pretty near the end. So if you wouldn't mind lefting all the way to the... All right, excellent. So I'm really excited to talk to you about some of our progress on the RSU1 Climate Resilience Working Group. If you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide. We're going to recap the policy. I know you all passed it, but it would be good to remind us what we passed and remind the public who's watching, talk a bit about our group composition, talk about the strategy we've used as a committee to move our work forward. Charlie's going to talk a bit about some of our progress from the first year. Ren's going to give us a deep dive on our energy audit. And then we'll start talking about our goals for this coming year's work and ask for your feedback. So go for it. All right, so in June of 2024, RSU1 School Board passed the RSU1 Won't Wait policy resolution. And that name is a nod to the Maine Won't Wait climate policy that was passed and then updated and presented publicly here at Morse High School last fall. And this policy really represented a connection between RSU1 and a lot of work that's happening at our local, regional, and state level. So the goals that we outlined in this policy were indexed to the Maine Won't Wait policy, but also the resilient Bath plan that was put forward by the Bath Sustainability Committee, and parallels work that's being done in our member towns. So Woolwich has a climate resilience committee, Arousik has a climate resilience committee, Phippsburg has a sea level rise and sustainability working group. And so we're seating ourselves right inside a movement that is consistent, that is kind of coming from our constituents and saying RS1 is going to take part in that. It's a huge problem. K-12 schools represent this massive infrastructure footprint in the public sector. If you think about the hundreds of thousands of buildings, many of them in aging states, our massive fleet of diesel buses, we're a huge part of the climate problem. And so I just wanted to applaud again the school board for taking the decision to join that movement to try and address the problem. This policy created a working group to try and figure out how to address the goals of the policy. We serve in an advisory capacity, so we can't, vote and say we have to hit a certain target. But the policy kind of shows in good faith that we're giving considered recommendations to the board that to be included into the educational plan, the facilities plan, and so forth to help us meet these goals. And the policy, like Patrick said, gave us 18 months, 18 school year months to do the work and to give you a midway update. So that's where we are. The two headline goals of the policy were to reduce emissions and waste. So that includes looking across our system, including but not limited to how we source our energy, our HVAC systems, upgrading our buildings, figuring out ways to reduce solid waste, both consumer waste and food waste, et cetera, et cetera. And then the second goal is around literacy and workforce development. We're in a changing economy. Our students should be prepared to enter in and get into those jobs that are going to become an increasing part of the way we make a living in Maine. So yeah, can go ahead. And we recruited a group of 18 people that have been meeting consistently. We've had great attendance at these volunteer meetings. We meet 90 minutes a month. Our RSU1 leadership includes Patrick, our facilities manager, Dennis Willett, and Dyke Newell principal, Jen McKay. There are 5 teachers and social workers on there, myself, Flower Noble, Julie Stone, who's our GMG representative at Bath Tech, Brent Lukes from BMS, and Katie Smith from Woolwich. We have 6 students who've been regularly attending, 4 from Morse and 2 from BMS. We've got 3 community members, one who is a solar expert, one who is a Department of Fish and Wildlife, kind of public lands and ecology expert, and a retired congressperson and engineer, Judd Thompson from Phippsburg. And of course, Patty McLaughlin's been coming too. So it's an awesome team that's been getting together with a lot of energy and a lot of great ideas. To strategize our work, obviously, our big deliverable is a set of recommendations for you. And so our initial step was to look to the past and go, what have we already done? What are we good at as a district? Where have we put our money and our resources? Where are the gaps? What are the things that we haven't figured out how to do yet? And then really trying to think about them. That matrix is on this sort of, how do they fall in impact versus complexity or cost? You can only do so many really impactful but really complex things. And it'd be great to get some quick wins in there as well. So we kind of mapped all of the ideas as a group onto that matrix and then started researching solutions to the big thorny problems like compost and building upgrades. But also knowing that it's really not too satisfying to just be in a planning mode for 2 years, especially with students at the table. We wanted to engage in direct action as well. And something that I think is really neat about this, this group is you can see that students are, a third of the group, and we meet around, well, a rectangular table, but basically a round table in spirit, and students are, sharing their ideas, I think, with equal validity and weight as the adults in the room. And that's just been really, really neat to be part of. So I'm going to talk about some of the things we looked at as progress RSU1 had made before we started working, and just kind of applaud and acknowledge just how much this district has done so far in this direction. And this is by no means comprehensive, but investing into a community solar project anticipated to save over $700,000 over the lifespan of that investment, and equipping our new buildings with geothermal and solar tubes, and upgrading our systems, the wood boiler at Woolwich, LED lights throughout the district, and, exploring some switches to more reusables in food service. So that is a complex task to take on that really has more to do with student culture and education than it does with systems. And so that's a bit of a white whale, but we've made some efforts on that. Morse is practicing limited composting. That service is available. We've got a garbage to garden contract, and students are taking part in that. EV chargers at Morse. And then, of course, there's a long-standing tradition of environmental education throughout the district, whether it's, at our elementary schools, Phippsburg doing climate expeditions, and BMS engaging in their 10th year of the green crab study, our partnerships with Kelt, Fisher Mitchell sorting their trash for 3 weeks in the cafeteria. And that just seems to be how we do business here. So it's pretty amazing to work in a district that has this much energy and to go, great, how can we run with this? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles, who's going to tell you a bit about what we did as a committee in the last year.
Our big effort that we're really proud of is achieving an energy audit with the Building Infrastructure Management Solutions, also known as BIMS. They waived a $50,000 audit fee based on RSU1's policy commitment to reducing emissions and track record of completing green projects. Our waste audits at Bath Middle and, is that Fisher Mitchell? Yeah. We found that nearly more than two-thirds of cafeteria waste was divertible, either recyclable or compostable. So that's 2/3 of our trash going to the landfill that doesn't need to be. We have explored composting options, and we found that we can't run any on-site composting sites, but we are working on a partnership with the city for additional garbage to garden contracts, and then a reformation of green teams at BMS and Woolwich Central that's starting up green clubs at the elementary school level, or the middle school level, excuse me. And then we are exploring grant funding to remove single-use items from cafeterias. So that's the little packages of silverware and napkins and such. And then we have invited Casella for a learning session about waste diversion best practices.
And now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the BIMS energy audit. So the goal was to determine how RSU1 buildings are performing in areas of energy efficiency, ventilation, and general function of systems. And then, well, this was initially kind of approached as how can we reduce carbon emissions and cost savings. We found that there were really 3 bottom lines, those being cost savings, carbon emissions, but also the health of the occupants within the buildings. And then just some notes, any work proposal would have to go out to bid. And then BIMS offers comprehensive financial support with any work that does end up happening. So the BIMS energy audits, so the tools used, there were CO2 loggers placed in classrooms and common areas in BMS, Morris High School, Phippsburg Elementary School, Woolwich Central School, and Fisher Mitchell. And then hands-on inspections of mechanical systems such as the boilers air handlers, ductwork, thermostats were all done. And then there was an analysis of the energy bill, so we could see how much money was being spent and how that really compares with the usage within the mechanical systems. So the results were that, well, the energy ventilation standard is that CO2 levels should be below 1,100 parts per million, and above that level, congestion decreases, which results in poorer focus, drowsiness, and impaired cognitive functions, and asthma and transmission rates of sickness. And there was actually studies done that found that there's a direct relationship between test scores and the amount of CO2. So that poor focus is directly leading to the quality of education that people are getting in the way they're able to apply that education. Classrooms in BMS, Fisher Mitchell, and Phippsburg Elementary exceeded 2,000 parts per million on a daily basis over the sample period, and some classrooms in Morris High School exceeded 1,100. That was likely due to the building not being commissioned prior to opening, and schools that improved ventilation, reduced number of substitute days required in student absences, and improved test scores, and that was found in other buildings that BIMS did work on. This is just an example of what one day of data logging looked like. So that time period is 24 hours at the beginning of the day. So when the school is not being occupied, there's a constant rate of about 500 parts per million. And then when the school begins to fill up with people, we see a bump in the CO2 levels within the school. There's a dip down around lunch period where you've got seniors and people leaving the building. And then right after that, there's another big rise to 2,000 parts per million in this specific classroom. And then once people leave the building, there's a drop in CO2 again. And the 500 parts per million baseline really shows that this is the school on its own is doing what it needs to do. But at the second there's a jump up, the systems are failing to really compete with the massive amount of CO2 entering. So what are the next steps with this? So BIMS is currently working with Dennis Ouellette and Patrick Manuel to develop recommended projects that would be paid for with cost savings over a term or reducing district carbon footprint. And BIMS offers private savings-based financing and assistance with state grants and support with promoting and marketing the capital campaign.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was awesome. Can we get a little round of applause for student speakers? Just wanted to take a second to say that we subjected the 6 students in this committee to 2 hour-and-a-half-long presentations from a panel of engineers. And they went into room-by-room details and gratuitous detail about air handlers and boilers, and they were there for it, all right, we're going to engage with this. So it's pretty amazing. Just wanted to shine another light on the student involvement in this program. So Ren and myself, we got to be part of the Maine Won't Wait kick-up this last fall. Ren got to address Governor Mills and a pretty distinguished panel of people, and gave a blisteringly good speech about our climate change imperative. Again, acknowledging that we're working as a roundtable, students and adults in partnership. And just to shine a light on some of the work that our green teams have done at Woolwich, their green team students took part in the Earth Day cleanup and picked up 23 pounds of trash just at Woolwich in a single day. And it's to say nothing about, down the road. They're prepping the greenhouse there for planting. They've started up composting in their building that students are running. So they've got compost buckets in every hallway and cups in every classroom, and they're collecting that on a daily basis and composting that on site. So it's really cool to see students taking initiative in that way. And then you can see on the bottom right there, the BMS green team. Those students noticed that the recycling at Bath Middle School was ending up in the trash dumpster. And it's no one's fault. It's just, everybody has a lot of work to do. And they volunteered to take over sorting the recycling. So a couple days a week during their study hall period, they go around the school with rubber gloves on and sort everybody's recycling to make sure it ends up in the right dumpster. So that's the power of Kids Unleashed right there. And they, you know, don't wait around for us to do the right thing. They just get to it. So that's really great. So we've got the rest of this year to work on our recommendations. The second goal was around climate literacy, and we didn't really have a chance to address that in the first year. So I had an initial check-in with Katie Joseph about how do you approach the work of seeing if a certain type of content is being taught and at what levels. And so the suggestion was that we'll start working through teaching content teams and starting to have just roundtable conversations. Where are you talking about climate change? Where are you talking about green jobs? Where are you talking about solutions? Because we really want to make sure that, you know, students they've been on a steady diet of gloom and doom for a long time. It's hard to feel empowered when that's what you hear. So we want to make sure that solutions and opportunity is really where we're coming down on this curriculum. So having those conversations at the teacher level, where are you teaching this? So we can start getting an idea, a map of if a student goes through Phippsburg to Bath to Morse, or they go through Woolwich to Morse, you know, where are they getting contact with this curriculum? And also talking with teachers about, you know, what professional development do you need to teach this effectively? This is intimidating. There's really high quality polls that have been done by NPR and Ipsos that say a huge percentage of teachers don't teach about climate change because they're afraid of either, you know, not understanding the content because misinformation is amplified at such a great level, but also afraid of stepping into that water and being perceived as acting politically when we're talking about teaching factual information, evidence-based science. So what, you know, curricula, what professional development would help them do that work well. We've started some conversations with a international organization called the Climate Initiative, which was founded in Maine. And the city of Bath is also going to be working on them on climate literacy issues. They have really great field-tested, evidence-based, standards-aligned curriculum for teaching climate literacy. So we'll start exploring ways that we can deploy that. We want to make sure that energy audit process is completed. It's going to happen. We're dealing with a super professional outfit that's done this work a lot of places. So I'm really excited to see the recommendations that they put together. And then I think at some point they're going to want to present directly to the board on their findings. And then this is most exciting. Charlie talked about how we spent a lot of our time researching how to make compost happen. And it is one of those things that feels like it should be so low-hanging fruit. It's so important to do, and yet it's expensive and it requires cultural change and it's complex. But Casella, who is our waste provider, has waded into compost services. And so they're willing to start working on us and exploring how we could change our contract if we could demonstrate we were able to divert compostable material from our waste stream, possibly coming up with a budget neutral type contract where we would add in that pickup service because we would have less weight on the forks of our waste dumpsters. So that's going to be some work we'll look into as well. And then the last thing is the state is having its first Green School Symposium here a week from Friday at Thomas College. We've got a bunch of teachers and students from the district going up there. I'll be presenting at that conference about climate leadership in the education space and some collaborations I've had around the state that have helped us do this work and ways we've helped others do this work with the hope that it will become widespread. So thank you for your time.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Lot of good information there. When did you say this thing is at Thomas College?
November 7th, week from Friday.
Week from Friday. That's fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. I'm sure some people have some questions. It's a lot of great information that you. So how did we? Maybe I missed. How did we get funding to do the energy audits, or is that?
Yeah, so that energy audit typically costs between $50,000 to $100,000. It represents dozens of engineer hours. They're not just looking at our bills; they were in our buildings, You should see, they've got diagnostic photos. They went into our boilers and into all our air handlers and saw that all of the, hinges inside the air handlers in pretty much every room at BMS are rusted shut. So they don't actually work.
Right.
You can have a boiler that's working as well as it should, but that air is not getting to the places it's supposed to, and therefore it's just leaking out the ducts and out the windows, and that's taxpayer money right there. And carbon that's just leaking out of our systems there. So, so a very, very hands-on, very thorough process, but it is because they have seen our demonstrated commitment to past green projects as a district. They saw that we passed a resolution that asks us to do our best to achieve these goals. They have a relationship with Dennis Willett, who is a fantastic facilities manager and has a history of doing this work in his previous districts as well. And so it's really a trust thing with no obligation that we work with them. Obviously, it's a public process that needs to go out to bid.
Sure.
But we
that's
can
amazing.
anticipate
That's
that
great.
they'll be throwing a bid in
of course.
to do that work.
Of course, it's good stuff. Who's
Yeah.
got?
So
wants-
did they waive the fee?
They waived the fee.
Yeah,
we
that's
haven't,
huge.
We haven't spent a dime to have
No,
this
that's
work
huge.
done.
That's a big,
Yeah.
big deal. Who's got a question?
Go ahead. I can wait. No, you go
Go,
ahead.
go ahead, Jennifer.
Reputation. Excellent report. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So I think there's a wonderful educational opportunity when we look at the energy audit process. And I'd be really interested if, along with our initiative, if the students wrote a correspondence to, let's say, Michael Stoddard, who's the head of Efficiency Maine, and said, this is all the effort that we're doing, and Efficiency Maine gets all this state funding and all this federal funding. And what can you do to help us either incorporate that process into our science curriculum, or the ability, because it's got wonderful engineering and architecture. It's got so many applications to take that data we already have, but also to address Michael Stoddard and say, where does Efficiency Maine's responsibility go to not just with the energy resources that we have in our homes, but also into our public spaces? And I don't know where that program is yet. I can't off the top of my head. But I do think that that's part of the education is part of their required initiative. So it'd be interesting to see, especially if it was a student-led effort, to try to see if get Efficiency Maine brought into that. You didn't talk anything about you talked a little bit about the indoor air quality for CO2, but not radon. Was that ever part of what you were thinking about? Because if we're not exhausting properly the CO2 that's being created by the humans in the building, it's interesting to know what the levels of radon might be because of these wonderful granite that we're all sitting on.
That's a great question. I don't believe it was tested for, but I think that would be very, very interesting to know. Yeah, we all kind of walked into this thinking about this having to do everything with carbon and tax dollars. And I think we were all kind of, frankly, gobsmacked by what we found about ventilation and effects on health. And
I would say, though, that we have been in touch with them about, these are a couple periodic ones. We're going to continue those periodic ones. And we did a lot of work with ventilation during COVID in all of our buildings. So that's, I think there's been some periodic assessments that have been done, but I think we want to recheck some of those as well to make sure we're doing our homework.
And I guess my last question would be about food waste. And I think it's wonderful that we're composting, but have you guys looked at all about what's upstream to that? Like, why are we having so much food waste? Is this impact of putting more food out that people aren't consuming? Is it just the impact of not being able to say, I don't want certain food if it's, if the meal is just presented? And how do you incorporate that into those wonderful basic lessons that you could have anywhere in any mathematics program, which I started doing at Dyke Newell a million years ago, just in the cafeteria there with that age demographic of students, and measuring the liquid and measuring the food and doing those things. So I think it's just like a harvest full of curriculum applications you could do. But I've also wondered, as we're providing more and more food, how efficiently we are in that food actually being consumed.
Yeah, you make a great point, right? It's all input and output. And you also highlight the issue that we're dealing with as a committee of 18 people that meets for an hour and a half once a month. You know, you start peeling back and you go, every one of these issues is huge and complex. It's interesting. I think Woolwich has done some work to try and reduce food waste by having a basket system in their snack. So instead of presenting it as a complete thing, students kind of have a variety pack. One of the things that we're doing at BMS and at Morse to sort of recapture some of that potential waste is sharing tables and sharing refrigerators. So the idea is if everybody's obliged to take these different food options, and you know, there's some good thinking behind that. If students aren't presented healthy options, then they aren't going to take them. So it's a way of encouraging healthy eating. But yes, there's a lot of waste that occurs from that. Instead of having students check it right into the trash, there's somebody who's got a bin there of, you know, give me all your apples, give me all the milks that you don't want. And they put that into a refrigerator and it's accessible to students. We run that in our alternative program at BMS, and that basket's empty at the end of every day. And we're starting to teach kids how to take that reclaimed food and turn value add into it. So we've been making banana bread and apple crisp out of the otherwise wasted food from the cafeteria and pudding from the milk and things like that. So those are things that can be done and pretty easily replicated in a bunch of sites. But yeah, there's little control that we have under current guidelines to change what foods are offered to students in order for it to be a reimbursable meal. We explored that with Melissa Cole. Yeah, so much curriculum opportunity there though. And to your efficiency main question, we BIMS, when they're putting together the financing package to achieve this work, they're putting together efficiency main grants. They're putting together any state revolving school improvement grants. They're offering private financing that's savings-based financing. So the idea of like, based on the fact that we anticipate you'll save $300,000 on X, we can finance you for that over the payout period. So they put together a suite of financial tools to do that work. And obviously we'll see what they have to say in a couple months. But yeah, thank you so much.
I just want to thank you all for doing such incredible work and providing a very comprehensive report to us on time. And I guess my one question for Charlie and Ren would be, if you think back over the past couple of months of this work, what's the most impactful thing that you're taking away, whether it's something you want RSU1 to do, or maybe just something that you learned that you were like, wow, that really stuck with me.
Do you want to go first?
Why don't you go first, Charlie?
Well, I think just the energy audit collectively was such a huge achievement, but to me, just pointing out that our ventilation systems are legitimately impairing learning, and just being able to have that information and then present it in this way, which I actually was unable to attend the meeting, the BIMS presentation for those results. So I learned that in preparation for this meeting, and it just it jumped out at me first. And then second, the fact that Casella is offering a composting program, and if this is a district-wide, like elementary school up through the high school level, students are going to, we will eventually be able to change that student culture of not sorting out our trash like as we throw it away from the bottom up, and eventually it's just going to be, well, we've always done it this way. So everything seems attainable with effort, and there are very realistic ways to accomplish those things.
Yeah, I'm gonna point out the ventilation systems as well, and just as Micah mentioned, like the fact that the boiler is completely working, but the flaps that should allow the building to ventilate and then the heat to get into the classrooms isn't working. And so the fact that it really is like we've got the major systems in place, it's really those little fixes that first off show how complex this is, but also that everything is, as Charlie said, attainable. Like whether that's going in and kind of slapping the ventilation systems a little bit to get the grates opening and closing again, or to larger fixes, but stuff that's cultural change. This is all doable work, and it's not as far-fetched as it seemed when I originally came in, to be like, we can become like an incredibly like an amazing school in terms of our climate literacy and our impact on the environment. And it's going to take a lot of effort, but it's not as far off as it seems.
Thank you both very much.
Yes, thank you all. It was really, really well done. Appreciate
I
it.
have one more question.
Oh.
Resilient Bath is working with a group called the Seiler Consulting Group, and they have a community panel that's looking at how the city of Bath will be implementing their resilient plan. And I'm just wondering if anyone has introduced you all to that group to see if there's anything. The reason I know of them is, the EPA grant that we tried to write for $20 million that would have given BMS lots of money to fix things like their boilers. All of that funding was pulled away by the current administration, but Seiler Consulting Group was showing other different grant opportunities that are available. So I just want to make sure that you guys are connected with them in case there's any sort of partnership that might benefit RSU1.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So we share a member. One of our community members is also a member of the Bath Climate Committee, Connor English. And then I'm also in regular communication with Rod Melanson, who's the Director of Sustainability for the City of Bath. So he keeps me apprised of what the city's doing, and I keep him apprised of what we're doing. There's never enough time. There's a lot more that we could do together, but yeah, it's very exciting. And also just wanted to say, in no way are we trying to, throw egg on the district for the state of buildings. This is very typical K-12 education in the United States. It seems like this level of, system function in buildings is very typical, because when it comes to really hard budget decisions between people and boilers, people tend to choose people, which is really admirable. We want great educators in front of people, and our board has done that time and time again. And it's hard to finance these things when they might not pay off for a long time. So it's difficult decisions, and we wanted to just acknowledge that as well. Thank the board for, sound financial management and considered decisions.
Yeah, thanks so much for being a part of this and for talking to us and for presenting this great work, Charles and Micah and Ren. You're doing great stuff as usual. A couple things. One is if there are issues with ventilation or with CO2 at Morse, it makes me shudder to think about a place like Dyke Newell, where there's other students. Some students that live in my house go there. Probably not even worth checking, right? I mean, just based on the age of the building, you probably assume it's not ideal.
Well, so Morse was very close to the acceptable threshold, and their theory right now is that we have incredibly modern systems here, but there was an understandable urgency to get people into this building as soon as the building was open. We were in COVID, and old Morse was, in a difficult state. And there's a process called commissioning when a new building is made, and all of the systems need to be tuned to work as best as possible with each other. And so that could be an outcome of this work, is that they finally officially commission the systems and get them working at optimal efficiency, in which we could anticipate this building achieving those targets handily. We didn't think they were going to do our elementaries because we're number one on the list, which every time I think about it is wonderful. But they did do Fisher Mitchell just to understand where we're at, and they compared the original to the 70s edition. And yeah, the numbers are consistent with BMS and with Phippsburg's there. Again, they stressed that it's not, an egregious, the building is not actively making you sick, but could we have better learning outcomes if we had better ventilation, certainly. So yeah, we're very excited about the new building and the
Yeah.
opportunities there.
Yeah, and that's this. I'm sure this has been discussed, but this is kind of a thought of it right away. Is that will the committee have any role when the new building is kind of designed, et cetera? Would you be interested in, especially from students? I know it may take many years and students may graduate, but the idea that there's now a committee that may last for a while to be able to take what you've learned and what you're going to be learning in this process to inform and, recommend for the next, new facilities, new infrastructure in the district.
So
Yeah, I mean,
Patrick's
one,
jumping
one
in.
thing that we have talked about that hopefully we can start this work on the new school soon is possibly talking to this group that we have, because at Morris, we had a sustainability committee made up of community members and staff members. And this would be, we might want to add a few staff members from Dyke Newell and Fisher Mitchell that might have a passion in this area. But I think it makes sense for this group, if they're interested, to maybe take on that component if the timing was right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so as the resolution is written, once we've prepared our recommendations and presented them to the board, that will continue to serve as an advisory capacity to the district on these issues, making sure that work is still ongoing, asking questions, squeaking wheels, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because every year you've got new students with new perspectives. And
Yeah, absolutely.
evolving theories and stuff. Okay. And last question, what day are the apple crisps being made?
We're baking most days. Yeah, swing by BMS, just follow your nose.
I just have a comment. It's not so much, it is also the equipment, the boilers, the dampers, that sort of stuff. Some of it's older and stuck and not working, but it's also where the vents are in a specific room that is causing part of this big CO2 spike. So if your intake is not as set where the students all are, then that could be part of the problem, where you're getting concentrations of CO2, because they did put them in just certain areas on the wall, not necessarily where everybody was. So it is also a design feature, which could be part of the older schools' problems as well, that some of the vents need just to be moved a little bit so that you have a better flow of air instead of just and of course, some of the mechanics aren't working, so that's part of the problem too.
And I also would add, I'm not an expert in this field, but CO2 is one component of air quality in any building or in the school. And so we do test our buildings for overall air quality when we, on a regular basis, but also when a concern may be brought up by a staff person, by a student, or by a parent as well. So.
Thank you so much. That was great. Great discussion, folks. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your time. Have a great night.
Okay, and we let the students continue here with the student board report. You should go get Ren and make him do it.
Yeah. First off, some good news. We have Leslie Trundy offering detention hikes. So hiking as opposed to detention. Morse guidance counselor Leslie Trundy has been recognized by news sources internationally regarding her efforts to chaperone hikes in place of detention. The Washington Post, Fox News, and NPR have published individual articles on her effort. She's also an avid hiker and lover of the outdoors, having hiked the Appalachian Trail, obtaining her wilderness first aid certification, and running the outing club and scheduling camping events here at Morse. Students love the hikes, and the school is seeing very positive results. Cross country recently competed in the regional championships, with senior Levi Riggs placing second in the boys Class B South race, and sophomore Isabel Chabot placing 28th for Class B girls. Both runners are headed to the state championship on November 1st in Cumberland. Boys and girls soccer are headed into championship season as well. Girls seeded 5th and boys seeded 6th for Class B South. Seniors Christian Hollowell and Zoe Nicholson have been recognized by the Portland Press Herald as players to watch in these games. The Morse High Variety Show, also known as Mohiba. The preparation has begun as auditions have been occurring for the past week or so. The show includes over 200 students this year, reaching athletes, musicians, and actors. And then the Halloween discrepancy. I was asked specifically by my peers to mention tonight that the students are very upset about not being able to wear their costumes to school on Halloween this year. Many wish that they would have been given the option to wear their Halloween costumes at school, with the expectation that if the costumes were thought to be offensive, they would remove them.
Okay, any questions? And always good to start with a little controversy. Any questions for the students? Nope. All right, yeah, go ahead.
I was just trying to think. But why is this a district-wide policy around the costumes?
It's been inconsistent in our district. And so we felt as an ad team that we needed to be consistent, and just from a safety concern, disruption concern to learning, we consulted with some other districts in the area as well. So, I mean, really that's, we're not opposed to days where it is a theme day, where it's something that it's a spirit day or it's a sport day or something that you can control, where how someone is going to not control, but you have a good idea of what someone is going to dress up as versus Halloween. So I know not everybody agrees with that, and we can certainly revisit it in future years. If students would like to be part of that discussion, we'd welcome that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Let's go with what we put in. Anyone who has any comments or questions about the reports from the schools and the.
Thank you, Lou. So just starting with the adult ed, I noticed that the item about the students, if they finish their high school credentials by this December, still qualify for the 2 free years of community college. I just hope that there's nobody, is there any way of knowing, is there anybody out there that we could make sure knows that, is still available to them, or encourage any student to do that? I just think it's such a wonderful opportunity. I'd hate to see it not fully used if at all possible. So just a general question about that. I noticed that 2 board reports said that they were, the challenges that they listed were trying to be able to manage the time between academic classroom instructions or testing and co-curricular things. And so I know that's probably always a challenge for people, but I was just hoping that if there is a continuing challenge for students or teachers, that we can help them with any kind of prioritizing, those 2 demands in their schedules. And then I was really happy to see that 3 of the board reports included a response or information about how they're meeting their goals. And I just thinking about our own board goals, I thought, wow, how great it is to kind of have that maybe at the beginning of the year, to have a goal that every school said, this is what we're going to focus on, and here is our progress towards that goal. If it's an academic goal or a social goal, it was really nice to see those are just happened to be brought up in 3 of the board reports. And I just thought that was a wonderful thing to think of just in general. And I guess my last question was the special ed report said that one of their challenges is trying to find staffing and the demand for their, services around student behaviors. And I guess I just had a question, because I think that the Dyke Newell report said that we're able to really have very successes in reducing, I think it was principal office visits for student behaviors. I could be wrong about that. But I was just kind of wondering if our special ed department in whole is struggling with staffing for that. I think we've tried to add more staffing, and I didn't know if that's just a temporary one or it's a bigger issue that we should be looking at across the board. Thank you for the chance to ask those questions.
All right. Anybody else?
I just wanted to mention that I also noticed the challenges with the special education, and I hope we can just keep that in mind as we go into the budget season this year.
Great, thanks for highlighting. I'm going to hand it over to you, Patrick. Superintendent's report.
Just Morse Community Service Day, I think is worth mentioning, and thank you to Mr. Bishop here who helps to organize that. We had students that went out and helped in a variety of organizations in our communities, and it's kind of neat. I was at one of the schools, elementary schools, when a van full of high school students came off to go, to give back at one of our schools, and to see the look on the young students' faces, to see your old staff be like, so happy to see you. And so it's just refreshing. And I know it was a rainy day, but to see people actually doing work out in the community when it was, raining pretty hard, kudos to all the students that did that. We hosted the 2025 state championship for Special Olympics up back here, and the place was packed, and I couldn't think of a better school with all that we do here with our unified programming to host Special Olympics. Phippsburg Musical Garden, that was in Nina's report. Hopefully you saw the picture there. It's neat. It's a new group in Phippsburg called Phippsburg Cares, and if you want to have some fun, go down on the playground, and they have pots and pans on, like, I guess I would say strings and wood, and the students are over there pounding them, making noise, trying to make music. So it's pretty neat to see. A reminder about the STEM plus M ribbon cutting is on November 6th at 9:30. All of you are welcome to come. There will be a lot of elected officials that will be there from our communities, but also from the state of Maine and from some businesses in town as well. Manufacturing. Yeah. So again, I'd love to have you if you can steal away for like 45 minutes. That's probably what it will take. And then lastly, just a thank you to Eric Varney, Katie Joseph, Willow Halpin, Charles McDonald, and Elizabeth Newcomb, who presented last Friday at the Maine School Management Conference, and I think had close to 40 people in a room, and talked about our new cell phone policy. And of course, Eric and Katie did a great job. But for the last 10 minutes of the meeting, we handed it over to our students, and they grabbed the mic and off they went, and answered questions in a very professional, very honest, very, in some cases, funny manner, and it was just great to see. You want to add anything on that, Katie? Okay. So thank the students. I mean, they missed a few classes and they got to go out to lunch, but we appreciate their efforts. And that's it.
Questions, Patrick?
All right, Deb, come on up.
I have a little place here tonight to set my things. All right. So tonight we're looking at the month of September. So we're just starting off the new year, and all is going well so far. We're just at the beginning. But last month I let you know that I looked at the salaries that were budgeted versus what we actually hired in for new staff, and we're in budget with that. So that's a good first step. As far as spending, we've spent 13.08%, and we've received 22% in revenues, and that is typical for the end of September of where we should be, or where we normally are. As we move forward, we'll keep an eye on substitute lines, special ed tuition. We have a few more out-of-district placements than what we had budgeted, so we'll see how that works out. And transportation, as far as out-of-district placement. And then on the report that you have in front of you, there's a couple of more grants that are listed from what was listed last month, and that basically the CTE grants that have been renewed. And then there's a $6,000 balance for homeless, preventing student homeless. And then we had a couple of more Lincoln Health grants come in. So Morse now has 3 grants, Norwich has 2. So all of that spending has started. And as far as enrollment, you can see that our enrollment is down about 47 students. And once again, for especially Jen, because you wonder about enrollment, that we'll have a better picture in November of kind of why that happened, as far as, was it just students moving out, or was it a larger senior class leaving and a smaller kindergarten. So we'll have more on that next month in November. And then I can also give you some details of budget versus actual as far as tuition revenues coming in. That's
Great.
it.
Questions for Deb? All right. That's great. Thanks for all the explanation. Appreciate it. Okay, we're just going, we don't have anything else under old business, right? So 11.1, Katie, you can give us an update.
Okay, I have a
Thank you.
few quick curriculum and instruction updates. First, at the start of this year, I know I shared that we would be having Maine Math and Science come and coach teachers on the new curriculum. And so I just wanted to let you know that they have presented at the October PD Day, and that went well. And then all of the past few weeks, grade levels K to 5 have been doing a half planning day each as a grade level across all 4 schools of a sample lesson, and then going in and watching the lesson together the following day, and then getting to debrief and sort of learn about the best way to plan together. And so that has been a ton of coordination for Beth Kaiser, but I've heard great things about it. And so they'll follow up with the next professional development for the Reveal Math program on November 10th. And I would say, like all new things, the first year of anything is hard because you can't just do it. You don't know the program. And so you're learning it while you're teaching it. So, I think that all of this professional development has been very supportive for staff as they're figuring it all out. I also wanted to report back on the new RTI model at Bath Middle School that we put into place this year. So we have 1 literacy interventionist now, and we have our 3 math interventionists, 1 for each grade. They all have a full load of students receiving services. And we have math co-teaching going on in some classrooms. And so far, the teachers who are now doing intervention seem really thrilled with how things are going. And I know I just feel good about the level of targeted supports that some of our students are getting that they weren't before. So that's good news. Also, Maine Maritime Museum continues to work with the 2nd, 4th, and 7th grade programs for Sense of Place. And we had sort of a reconnecting. Allie Travers has been, I think, a year into her new role overseeing the educational programs there and is doing an excellent job. And so we had a recent meeting at Bath Middle School just to check in on where programming is there now that there's 1 team per grade level. So 1, I wanted to let the board know that in checking in with the elementaries, 2nd and 4th, they love the field trips. The kids love the experience. That's just going to keep happening. We're now going to move the Sense of Place program from 7th grade to 8th grade because it matches. Now that it's not a loop, it makes more sense to put it with the 8th grade curriculum. So that's going to happen. But the program is excellent. And they both come to our classrooms and also take a field trip to the museum, depending on whatever the theme is. That program, just so to remind you all, we don't pay for except for transporting our students. And so it is, I believe, donor-based through their museum, which is extremely generous to continue a connection for our students to have exposure to the features that the museum offers. So I just wanted to thank Maine Maritime for the great work they're continuing and let you know that there's really no change. Everyone's happy with it. And we're just moving 1 program up a grade. And then the last thing actually is something that Lou introduced me to. I met with 2 women from the Bath Meadow Conservancy, which is a new group that's preserving an acre of land in downtown Bath to help with outdoor education and creating a pollinator ecosystem across small cities and towns in this area. And so I'm excited because it just seems like they're really wanting to sort of implement educational experiences in this 1 acre plot. And it seemed when I spoke with them to be a great thing for our credit pathways program, as well as potentially our life skills program, as well as our, Carolyn Nichols, who has the apiary and the bee club. So we're having a meeting on the November PD Day, all of us, to start thinking of how Morse can be connected with this new project. So I just was excited that it could potentially be another great community connection for our students and our teachers. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Katie? Go.
Does the bee program here at Morse sell honey?
Yes.
Can we
Are
have
either of you in it?
Um,
It's delicious.
I'm not officially in the club, but I have an independent study as Miss Nichols' lab assistant, and a lot of the time is spent with the bees and harvesting the honey. And
I think you might sell a lot if you brought it to a meeting
Oh,
like this.
I'll keep that in mind. I'll let her know.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Katie, does the PD that we're doing for the math program, do you have any plans to helping parents get some assistance and training as we're looking at a new math program? Because I remember when we rolled out the last one, that was a big component that I don't know if we had planned on before, but in helping with the program, a lot of parents contacted me.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so our math committee is continuing to meet 3 times this year. We're surveying teachers before each meeting to see how things are going, to make sure we're giving teachers the support they need. But one of our other projects is actually to check in on how we can better support the home math connection. And so we haven't, just because it's also new, we haven't been able to, other than our rep showing teachers where the home packets are that can be sent if teachers think it's appropriate or are giving something to take home to do as a family. So that's happened, but it's upcoming for this year to plan something better, perhaps a math night or, something with hyperlinks that families can do at home together. And so it's on the horizon, but not done yet.
Great, any other questions, comments? Thank you for the update. It's very good, very comprehensive. Okay, next is 11.2, the overnight out-of-state field trip request. This is an action item. You have one for Woolwich Central School to DC and another from Morris High School to East Orland, Maine. There's any questions? Otherwise, if I can have a motion.
I move to approve them both as written. I don't know.
I'll second.
Okay, any other further discussion? All in favor? All right, so those are good to go. And 11.3, this is no action tonight. However, we have, what do we have, 6? I think, yeah. I'm just going to read through them real quick. So JICH, or the drug and alcohol use by students. There's another one that's student drug use guidelines. The very interesting temperature standards in schools. School unit employee references. Support staff positions and support staff employment. So those are some new policies. I think they're all there for various reasons. Some were required and are new. Other ones, as I understand, we were already following, and we're updating some policies right with our new structure. So are there any questions about these this time out before we? Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question on the JICHR. For the consequences.
Yeah.
Is it typical to do in-school suspension still?
Which part are you asking about, Megan?
Like on A, first offense could be, well, it said in-school suspension. So I was once just wondering, do we not really do in-school suspension now? Is it more? You do? Okay. I was just curious.
Any other questions, concerns about the language? Yeah, Anita.
I was just wondering in that same
I'll have to go back and look. I don't know, Jen, if you remember. I think this was something that a committee from Morse High School and from Bath Middle School and Woolwich, the middle school component, looked at this policy because they wanted it to reflect what they currently were doing. And so let me go back and, ask that question. You're talking about on first offense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do you have anything else? No? Any other questions regarding the policies as they are at the moment? Okay. Great, so get back to us on that. And then again, no action, we'll vote on that next time. 12.0, we got personnel items. Patrick?
Yeah, just one resignation. Jensen Fish, who is an ed tech at Fish and Mitchell, I'd like to thank her for 2 years of service and wish her the best she's doing an internship in speech pathology. So that's a reason for resignation. So she needs to do that on a full-time basis. So.
Okay, we've got board goals for today.
Tonight, I think that we've reached our board goal, pre-K programming. I think that our sustainable report definitely focused on that, as well as Katie's report about curriculum. I was thinking about one of our board goals that says utilizing data analysis, and I was wondering if our detention hiking had any data analysis with it that we could talk about. Is there been a reduction in repeat detention for people that get a chance to hike? Are there certain detention reasons that are reduced because we're doing the hiking? I don't know how hard it is to gather that data, but I think that might be good for going forward. And then for facilities, that we are looking at our policy to temperature thing, and also facilities and getting the sustainable report. So we've met a couple of those schools.
Great. Yeah, I don't know about all the stuff with the hikes. I just know that, the kids, they don't have the detentions, but they're still going on the hikes. So that's that's kind of a fun thing to see happen. All right, thank you for that. Okay, so under 14.0, before we go here, I know that Jennifer is gone. That Monday, November 24th, that is the Monday before Thanksgiving. Are people able to make that meeting? Otherwise, I just want to make sure we can have the meeting itself. Yeah, okay. What I am going to propose, though, is let's just meet at 6 o'clock. Let's not do the 5:15, because I want Jennifer to be here for that goal setting, because she's such a big part of that. And she's going to be gone that Monday. So what we'll look at is if it's usually December, we do it earlier. It's usually a lighter agenda anyway. So I'm thinking we move that the goals to the December one. We can meet a little earlier and make it an easier meeting. Okay, so you can cross that off and just plan on, you'll get the info, but we'll plan on 6 p.m. Monday, November 24th for our regular meeting, since we can still have a quorum. Anything else for the good of the cause, for the good, anything? No? Okay, well, thank you all for being here, and adjourn? Yes?
I make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Second, all in favor? All right, thank you, everyone. I'll show, it's right next to, it's at the end of North Street. You know where it's at? You've seen it? So, no,